What's up, YouTube people? What's up? Oh man, it's gonna be interesting tonight. We'll see. Corey hasn't actively streamed in a while, so we'll see how much longer he goes and how it impacts us. Which is real funny. So for those of you here early, wow, English. Just so you know, I'm going to tell you a story in a little bit, but just put in hashtag accident or happy accident. I'll give it specifically to you. I'll copy paste it for you. Bam. Put that in chat. Trust me. Trust me. All right, so we'll do the usuals, and then we'll get rolling. So this is where this gets fun. Let me see if this is a. Okay, making sure stuff works. I hope everybody had a good Christmas. We did things, we did stuff. Oh man, it's flying in. There it comes. Let me see here. So, I'm going to tell you guys a story before we get into the topic. Short story, nothing big. So, my kid brother, right? My brother is almost 12 years younger than I am. And he ended up in the hospital with a super swollen knee. So his knee was triple the size it normally is. It's basically like having a basketball for a knee. And he had to go get it drained. And then they're doing all sorts of cultures, because when that kind of stuff happens, just seemingly randomly, they're trying to figure out why. And there's some worries about the scariest potential thing was a blood clot in his lung, and some stuff like that. So, needless to say, I got this semi panicked text from my mom, just kind of letting me know what was going on, and I had no clue, because my brother hides that stuff all the time. He doesn't want to admit when he's having problems, because he's got a little bit of bravado to him. I love the kid, but So, luckily, no blood clot in the lungs. Those are scary, right? But we're still trying to find out some other stuff. But he got drained, and now his knee's in all sorts of pain because it got huge, and it's gonna hurt for a bit while he heals up. So that's happening, right? And I'm processing all the giveaway winners from last week's live stream and the replay crew. And I did a secret one for just channel members, just to say a little extra thanks, and the folks on Patreon. So I'm walking through and I'm processing all the gift cards that I gave out, which gave out $400 worth of stuff. Just saying. And so I'm putting carts together, and I'm buying gift cards. I'm sending emails, and I sent the last email this morning, right? And then I went back and realized I had one leftover $50 gift card to Aquarium Co-op. So I start getting super paranoid that I missed an email or something, and I go back. And I start doing a count, and I put stuff together and realize that I bought one more gift card than I needed to. So, we're going to give that away tonight. Why not? That's what hashtag happy accident is for. Alright? So, just a little thing there. Little something. Just to further... Bentley did a dumb mistake, so why not have a little fun with it too? Oh, man. Paul Soltero, that would be mine. I like where your head's at, Paul. It's a good positive attitude. Ah, man. So, let me talk a little bit about my intended topic, then we'll do the usual question, and that's New Year's resolutions. What fishy stuff are we doing? So, do you guys make New Year's resolutions? Do you have them? Put them in the chat. I'd love to have some back and forth on them. I have a couple, obviously. The big one will be getting everything with the online horticulturist program back on track, which basically means I have to hire a new dev because my dev went completely MIA, and now I kind of have to start mostly from scratch. Yeah, because the dev is the admin that accesses all the stuff before it goes live. Once it was to go live, then we had a transfer set up, and I would have control of everything. Yeah, so I have to start from ground zero. That's fun, right? It's fun. And the other thing I'm trying to do, I'm looking into a drastic expansion in my availability of tanks. So, AKA, I want to get back to being able to breed some fish, to do some more projects, to do testing lab the way I want to do testing lab, as opposed to like kind of the more simplistic testing that I do in my current tanks, which a lot of that is like lighting or single tank tests where I just can't, I can't do a little bit more variance of control. I have to like, I have to use like one tank at a time for several months because it's very, each one is housing some different species, so it's hard to make them all equal, right? Or if I have space for them, it's doing that. Alyssa Bentley, New Year's resolution: get my fish room actually built. That's how I feel. I need to actually get my fish room built, as opposed to like the hodgepodge around my house that I call a fish room. Oh man. Yeah, those are my big ones. I'm sure Dean would give you his discus. I don't know. He'll probably like let me buy some. I don't know if he's going to give me some, but I actually talked to Dean briefly today. So one of my random story on top of this, but it's kind of in the same vein. But one of the guys that works for me is a big reptile guy, specifically snakes, and he's his Christmas gift to himself was ordering this nice new racking system for all of his pythons, and he's got some breeding projects to start late next year. Basically, he's given his current snakes plenty of time to get to the right size and health and all those kinds of things before he worries about breeding. But he used to breed snakes quite a lot before he moved to Washington when he used to live in Florida. So we were talking back and forth a little bit about that because we had a little bit of downtime waiting for some physical prototype devices to show up for us to mess with, and we're talking about it a little bit, and he was like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out a proper temperature controller and all this, and I'm like, I got a couple people I can ask questions of. So I reached out to Dean and was like, hey, what temperature controllers have you used in the past or are currently using? Because I know there's certain racks that he doesn't heat purely by the room. He heats individually to get a little bit higher temperature. And so we had a little back and forth conversation about that and a few other side small things, like, kind of laughing at both of us getting nowhere near as much work done during Christmas as we wanted to. Which is, spoiler alert, the video that's coming out this week is going to be a part 1, and it's not the fish room tour yet. That's coming, but the Guppy Mansion overhaul took way more time than I thought I was going to take. But I think there's a good lesson about some Java Fern in there, and yeah, you can just see how certain things have changed or deteriorated over time, stuff like that. And after half the work is done, it's amazing how much space suddenly appears in that tank. So yeah. All right, those are mine. Let's see if we got some other good ones in this chatterino. We got Happy Accident just flying. For those who don't know where that comes from, for some reason, I am a massive fan of Bob Ross. He's like a personal hero about his his just natural positive attitude and love of nature, and just that he has a very similar outlook about wild creatures to members of my family. So he's kind of always been a minor inspiration in my life, which is part of why like I have kind of the outlook on life that I have, which is generally very positive, comes from lots of watching and listening to Bob Ross as a kid, and still now. So yeah, happy accident, honor the great Bob Ross. All right, let me see here. I need to catch up on shit. Summoner. Hi, how does it feel to be the smartest guy in the room? I am very rarely the smartest guy in the room. I am very fortunate in that where I work, I am surrounded by extremely intelligent people. And everybody's intelligence is a little different. There are some people that are super smart in one way and like completely clueless in others. I've got a buddy of mine that I love to joke with because he's one of the most book smart people I've ever known in my life. But his like common sense or street smarts, whatever you want to call them, not so much there. And like he can make some funny mistakes that are hilarious when it comes to just like simple common sense things. But then you talk to him about technical things and you just feel like you shouldn't even be in the room with him because you can't keep up because he's so smart and just knows so much about what he's talking about. Yeah. So I can say that very rarely am I truly the smartest guy in the room. There are lots of people way smarter than me about certain things or in general, whatever it may be. I'm just usually the loudest guy in the room. Oh, man. That's so true, though. From Michael, Happy New Year and thanks for all your help. My tank looks much better after your advice on lean dosing of Easy Green. Perfect. All plants are growing fast, and the boost is coming back. That's super good to hear. Like, anytime I can help people get their tanks back on track and start looking... I got an email, I think it was like a week and a half ago, and it took me until yesterday to answer it, where basically somebody said that they were falling back in love with their tank because of my help and getting their plants back to health and fighting off their algae issues. That they went from like being super frustrated to falling back in love with their aquatics. And like, man, that's such a good feeling reading that. Like, I couldn't properly express how good that made me feel reading that kind of thing. Because like, you have that impact on somebody, man, it just feels so good. And it was simple stuff. It was just like, let's make some small tweaks. Let's do some stuff. Follow up with me a couple weeks. Okay, let's make some small tweaks. Let's do this. We're on the right track. We just need to do a few other things. Follow up in a couple weeks. He could just see making these small adjustments was making impact, right? And it's just like small mistakes over time can lead to problems. And all you have to do is make small adjustments and be patient, and you'll get back where you need to be. It was pretty great. Gary Duncan, what are your thoughts on auto feeders? How would you use one if you have glass tops? So usually glass top doesn't cover the whole thing, right? You have the back side, and that's where you put the feeder. You might have like the plastic bit, and you just cut out a hole for the feeder. In general, I don't use auto feeders. I don't really vacation much, so maybe that's part of it too, but I feed all my fish by hand. And if I'm not, lately brother-in-law James has been feeding a bunch of fish because it's something he really enjoys. So there's certain tanks that he's responsible for in the house now. And there's plenty of tanks that I pay more attention to. And I still look at all my tanks pretty much every day, but there's some that I let him feed because he enjoys that, right? And that's one of the things that he likes a lot about aquatics. So I want to further that and further inspire that stuff, right? If I were to use an auto feeder, so if I was going on like a long vacation, that's when I would use them if I knew I needed to keep getting food to certain fish. And the big thing is dial it again to the right amount so it's not overfeeding, right? And even if it's kind of a lean feeding, that's okay as long as some food's getting in there. And realistically, I would do it if I wanted to do one of two things. If I wanted multiple feedings a day, I would use an auto feeder to do that for me, and I would just get one I know I can dial in really well. It's like Corey at Aquarium Co-op does that in his fishery, right? He's got smaller feedings multiple times a day with his feeder as opposed to just once a day doing a big feeding, right? The second thing would be anytime you're doing a longer vacation, like a week or longer, and you just want to be certain that a measured amount of food is getting in every tank and they're getting some food, that's another place where you could look at auto feeders. Otherwise, like, I just think that auto feeders get you away from just kind of paying attention to your tank, and you could miss some small things that down the line could turn into catastrophe when it comes to disease or just plant health, whatever it may be. But when you're feeding your fish every day, you're watching them, you're seeing those little behaviors when they eat, and you can see which fish isn't eating during feeding time and that kind of stuff. And that's where I don't like them, because you get away from doing that stuff, and that's a problem. To me, at least. Because, like, I pay, rainbows have really specific behavior. I keep a lot of rainbows. So watching that behavior is really important to me, because that tells me whether or not my fish are healthy or whether something's going on, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. There's my thoughts. Kingfisher's Catch, a.k.a. Joe Davis. Good to hear you feel that's your next step. What's your golden egg project for breeding? Good question. So there's a couple rainbows I really want to do. I think the biggest rainbow I want to actively breed right now is my Running River rainbows. There's not a lot of people breeding those. There's a lot of people breeding several other things, but that's the one that I love that fish so much, and I don't want to rest on my laurels too long with them. I've got a good group. I've got a healthy group. I've got a couple of very, very, very good-looking males and plenty of females, so it's a good time to get them going and doing their thing. So, yeah, next year would be where I'd really want to get that done and start getting reliable numbers of babies out of that fish. And, I mean, reliable numbers of babies right now basically just means that I have more fish for myself. But the eventual goal is to partner up, similar to how I do stuff with Jason. If Jason wants to ship rainbows, which we talked at first, he was kind of like, I don't know if I want to ship rainbows, but partnering up somewhere, whether that's just a local store somewhere like the Co-op or something like that, or some of the other wonderful local stores that we have here, and just having them become available, even if it's locally first, to more people in the hobby, because they have such a wonderful story, they're such a cool fish, and they don't get super big, so they can go in some of the smaller tanks, unlike some of the bigger, like your turquoises and stuff like that, are more common that you see. They get kind of big, and they really do need bigger tanks. So that would be the big one. Whoa, chat jump. That's ain't on behind. Fish Tank Dad, welcome to Autosinkless. Good to see you. There's popping in every once in a while. Good to see you back. There's one question in there I want to not miss. Whoop, 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 whoop. Yeah. Then a comment from Paul Soltero. Made my first sale to the new local fish store, delivering the fish tomorrow. Nice. That's great. Amazon Pancakes. Do you have a favorite rare Cory catfish? Well, they're not really rare in the grand scheme of things. My favorite Cory, for right now at least, is the orange Venezuelan. Or the Adolphoi. I kind of go back and forth between the two, because I have Adolphois and I love them to death. But orange Venezuelans are one of the ones that I have on my kind of want list. But I don't want to get them when I can't give them more dedicated space. Most of the rare Corys, this is going to sound terrible as it's such a snob when it comes to being a rainbow fish breeder, but it's and keeper. A lot of the Corys all look the same to me. You have a lot of dot and linear patterns that are all kind of blend together. And it's more like the Corys that have more interesting patterns that really get to me. So the skunk Cory, for instance, right? That is a really definitive pattern that you can't miss. The Adolphoi and the Duplicarius are both very similar, but that pattern is kind of unique. I guess the rare one in that would be interesting is the Equus Cory, right? The Horseman's Cory. Those are super cool, but whew, are they expensive? And then I'm kind of a sucker for just your standard stir-by and bronze Corys. They're great looking fish. They're great looking fish. They're hardy. They're healthy. I have two bronze cories that raised up in my tank randomly, and I every time I see my babies, as I call them, like I'm so happy to see those two swimming around. And now they're basically young adults. They're good size. They're probably both male, but they swim together and kind of play together all the time, and it's just fun to watch, man. I just get excited. I get jazzed seeing those little guys. Compared to like the mom that's in the tank, she's a thick girl. Bill Coleman, have you ever played with mermaid weed? Yeah. Yes, I have. I had it for a while in my my Plants for Profit tank back when I was doing Plants for Profit. I don't have any currently, but the big thing really to be successful at that plant, simply put, is like strong light and a little bit of CO2 goes a long way with it. But strong light's the big one. Always wanted to do a Cory catfish breeding project with some rarer Cory catfish. You know, what's becoming rare in the sense of you don't see very many of them in the hobby is the gold laser Cory. So you'll see like the orange laser and the green laser, but there's a Cory that has like a golden yellow streak in that laser pattern instead, and that's a fish I would love to see people do more of. Maybe it's just part of it is like there's not a lot of them, so they're hard to get in the first place, and then a lot like some of the other laser Corys, they're not super easy to breed. But maybe I'm just like completely unaware because I'm not a big like Cory aficionado, so I don't delve super deep into the realm of like Cory catfish breeding. That's a great question for like an Eric Bodrock kind of person, right? Because that guy he's a Cory machine, and I'm like Cory cats are cool kind of guy. Until Bob Ross and Orphan Baby Raccoon, best episode ever. Oh yeah, that raccoon. I love the squirrel, man. Peanut the squirrel. It's good times. And maybe that's because like one of my cousins, they had a recent windstorm knocked down a tree, and there were some baby squirrels in there, and she's currently like raising up the two baby squirrels that survived from it. One has its back legs paralyzed, and that that little squirrel's a go-getter, let me tell you. But you know, she's like getting all this like really good food for them and treating them super well, and built this enclosure and all this crazy stuff to like take care of them, because there's a lot of where she lives, there's a lot of predators, so she couldn't really release them right away. And now, like, I don't know that she ever will, because she loves them so much. Mike Stambaugh, did you see John Madden passed away this evening? Yes, I did. I was actually texting back and forth with a friend of mine about it, because there's just that the Madden documentary that came out, right? What was it, Christmas Day or whatever? And you know, 3 days later he passed on. It's kind of sad and weird at the same time that lined up like that. Leo Contreras, what's your thoughts on feeding plecos live blackworms? I've heard mixed things. I typically don't feed live blackworms to my plecos, but I don't have carnivorous plecos anymore. And when I did, I just preferred the more sanitary, like frozen things like bloodworms and stuff. And a matter of that, part of that is just like it's easier for me to handle as a person. The only time I've ever fed live blackworms, I did it for a couple times to my rainbows as like treats, and then I just kind of stepped away from it because if you don't do it fast enough, the liquid they come in is always like weird, and it's got this weird stuff in it, and I get all paranoid about it. Yeah, that's my thing. I'm not big on live blackworms. I think if I was culturing them myself, maybe it'd be different, but when I'm reliant on buying them from somewhere else, I get a little leery about it over, say, like frozen food. If you were culturing it yourself, I think it would be fine for like your more carnivorous plecos. I wouldn't necessarily do it in like a tank of, bristlenose or something like that. I would be more inclined to do a little bit of baby brine shrimp for those, and for the most part keep them to more vegetarian feedings. Duck Hunter, in your opinion, is a dosing pump worthwhile for Easy Green and Easy Iron on a high-tech tank? Ooh. So, I mean, I guess the question is it worth it because you know that you personally can't be reliable enough about it? Because if you know, like, I'm going to forget to dose every single day and dose at the same time or whatever consistency you want, right? Or if you're trying to really dial in a super specific dose and maybe that, like, milliliter amount is hard to get out of just pumps, where if you can do it with a dosing pump, it's easier, then yeah, I think it's worth it if you're trying to really go the extra mile. But if you're just simply trying to make it slightly easier or slightly more reliable, I think you can make the adjustment to where that extra 20 seconds in the morning is really not that much work for you. Just my personal thought. W. Marion, thanks for the suggestion on Florin Multi Java Fern with all fresh growth, no brown spots, 2 boosts blooming for the first time. I love Florin Multi. That stuff is fantastic. It's fantastic. And I use it in certain tanks. But not all, so that's where it's interesting. I especially like using it early in a tank to get a little extra micronutrient dose load to kind of basically set a tank up for long-term success. And then if I have bigger fish loads, then I'm more likely to skip using a full all-in-one and move to just that, because I know that I'm going to have the phosphates and the nitrates naturally in my water. Bob Purcell, I don't think I've seen you wear the same hat 2 weeks in a row before. Your hat's okay. I wear my Seahawks hat. Yeah, no, I think I just randomly, certain shirts that I wear, I will wear certain hats with on purpose because they're the most color coordinated. That's the close to like color coordinating my wardrobe I ever do. And this was literally I was running out the door this morning because I'm dealing with snow, so I have to take extra time driving in and stuff like that. And people in my area just don't know how to drive in snow at all. So it was literally like the hat on top of the pile was what I grabbed, and that happened to be my Seahawks hat. It's just, yeah, it's what you do. And then last week, right, our game got moved because of human malware, and we were playing on Tuesday night, so I was wearing my hat to root for my team that has had its first losing season in a decade, first losing season in a decade, and we then subsequently, of course, lost that game as well, because why wouldn't we? every so often your team's got to lose, and for the teams that lose a lot, every once in a while you got to win. So that's sports. It just happens, especially in Seattle. Usually we have a lot of losing going on, but football's been pretty generous to us the last 9 or so seasons. Alleycat, I had BBA problem. No matter how much I took out, it looked like it grew overnight. I used 1-2 punch with the hydrogen peroxide and adjusted the Fluval 3.0 to 10 hours total with siesta. That was 2 weeks ago. No issues since. Sounds fantastic. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you'll get it with CO2. I've got tanks with CO2 where I get Blackbeard, and it's just a slow, patient fight to beat it every time. Every time. Because it's the relentless pain in my... Mega Machamp, let's go, champ! One of our winners. Do any rainbows work as a centerpiece fish, or do they all prefer schools? They all prefer schools. They can go solo, but really they prefer being in groups. They're very social fish. But I've seen more than a few like solitary turquoise or Australian rainbows in tanks, and they've been healthy and fine, but they do so much better. They have such better behavior when they're in a group. Just the way they are. They're a social fish. Fish Tank Dad, one of the best things about fish is feeding them, in my opinion, and I agree. I love feeding fish, man. I love watching them get all excited and doing that thing. It's just, it's part of the fun part. And like, I love encouraging that with like brother-in-law James, for example, because he has fun seeing fish eat and trying some of the different foods and stuff. And then like every once in a while, I'll be like so for Christmas Day, right? We fed frozen food to all the tanks, and yeah, yeah. um, that was it was fun because he was like, can I get a cube of frozen food from my tank? And I was like, of course you can. Like, so he came back down a little later. We met for the evening after we kind of all took a break, and we all separated for a little bit Christmas Day, and he came back down, and we were getting ready to play some Mario Party. I was like, how'd your fish like the frozen food? He's like, oh yeah, they were really happy. They were moving all over the place eating it, and it was very fun to watch. I was like, yeah, don't worry, we'll do that a little bit more. Fun stuff. Michael, how long your lights should be on if there is CO2 with some stem plants, moose, Anubias, Java fern, and dwarf lily? Also, what do you think about high water flow promoting algae growth? So, higher water flow can promote certain algae growth, but so can very stagnant water, aka very low flow. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I think anybody saying like, oh, purely limited flow stops all algae. That's not correct. It stops a lot of algae if you have other things in the right balance. But you could also have all those things in the right balance, in theory, with potentially different plants that handle flow well and be in a high flow aquarium and still not get algae. So an example would be like the great interview that Jimmy did with Ocean Aquarium, right? Where he's talking about how flow tends to cause more algae. That depends on the plants you're using. Because if those plants don't do well in higher flow, then yeah, they're not competing against that algae as strongly. But if they do well in high flow, you can compete against algae. And certain algae do well in low flow, staghorn algae, for example, where other algae just get absolutely obliterated by being in low flow because the nutrients and stuff don't cycle around that they need as well. So it's kind of like it's a toss-up, right? In general, I prefer kind of like a some flow mentality of life, but probably that's because I keep Rainbowfish and they like flow. As far as how long lights should be on, that really depends on you. So what I mean is, like, I keep my lights on way longer than I think anyone else probably should. And that's just a matter of I have adapted and learned over time with the way that I keep tanks, how I keep my plant load, how I fertilize, all those things, that I can have my lights on longer. Most people, I think 6 to 8 hours is fine. And they don't need to run like 12 and 13 hours like this crazy dum-dum does. But you can just think about it like this, right? In nature, is the sun only out for 6 to 8 hours a day? At the prime growth season, aka summer? No. You're getting like 14 to 16 hours of daylight at some points in the spring and summer, right? You're getting tons of light. And it's not like plants just like fail to do well because they're getting that much light. As long as the nutrients are present to have light that long and to photosynthesize through that entire period, they'll do what they do. But if they don't have the necessary amount of nutrition to go along with that light, that's when you encounter problems. So it's all about how you balance your tank and do things. Whew, long-winded answers. Bentley's like running out of air over here. One moment, I need a slight beverage break. Susan, thank you for the member chat. Happy New Year to you as well. It's always good to see you, Susan. I love seeing you a lot more regularly. It always brings a warm smile to my heart when you're in chat. Just want you to know that. I appreciate you. And I hope I'm going to see a whole lot of fish nerds here this upcoming year. Bob Purcell, not the co-op, do somewhere that will ship. I mean, I'll do what I can. That's going to come down to, like, who I can talk to. Only certain stores in this area actually are willing to ship. Mostly that's Jason. And otherwise I have to do something where I have to ship to some of the other places. So, like, an example would be someone like, say, Dan from Dan's Fish, right? I know he works for certain breeders, but I would have to ship stuff to him in order for him to then have in his facility and then ship out. So we get into these trouble spots like that, right? That's just how things are. Corey, I noticed in my 55 gallon I'm getting black dust algae and curl on some leaves. I'm also seeing red rhizome on one. Red rhizome, I guess it would be depending on what plant it is. Red rhizome, I'm assuming like an Anubias or something like that actually has a green rhizome. Dosing Thrive C daily with autodoser CO2 at 5 bubbles per second in a fluval plant 3. So curl in the leaves almost always is low calcium. Keep in mind that like certain amounts of hardness, I mean it's typically carbonate hardness, not calcium, but mineral in general can get eaten over time depending on what your water's like. And your water change schedule and all that kind of stuff. Black dust algae is usually something that is resolved by a little bit of extra flow, but typically excess phosphates is where we tend to encounter dust algae, but not always black dust algae. Usually black dust algae, whenever I see that, it's on plants that are very, very slow growers, so like your Anubiases, your Booses, even some Java ferns. And they have, they're getting exposed to way too much light. So you could potentially have like hyper low demand plants in excessive amounts of light. And so as things build up, it's algae that takes over. It usually doesn't hurt the plants too much until it starts covering the entire leaf. But you can get rid of it in theory just by like a toothbrush if you're willing to put in that much work. That's the big problem. And then Thrive C, I mean, Thrive C is a great fertilizer. So I would look potentially at your micros and look at your carbon hardness and general hardness. Like, see if any of those are potentially low, because that could tell you a little bit about what's going on overall in the tank. That's a tough one, though. It's tough. It's tough. Those problems are tough to fix over time, but you can do them. It just takes lots of small adjustments. And it's a lot of, like, tinkering and playing and testing things. David Foster, I just replanted my 55-gallon tank with only Italian valves. Cool. I like the only valve look. It does look really good. Do you think it's necessary to dose column with an all-in-one fertilizer, or should I just put in root taps? I think you're fine doing just root taps. Because that plant in particular is a rosette plant, and it's going to feed more heavily from the roots if that is available. So just keep that in mind. Bob Purcell, will you be taking any wob and rooster plecos to redfish, bluefish? When I can get to like more reliably breeding them and having babies in numbers, yes. Right now I don't really have, I'm letting them do their own thing too much. And that means I'm not producing a lot of babies reliably. I'm getting like a couple here and there that basically survive in the tank. and that's led to like, I could take like 2 to him right now, or 3. And that doesn't last long. But we've talked about the Wobbin Roosters, and that's probably something that will go his way when I get them in reasonable numbers with some kind of frequency, similar to like the guppies, which we talked a while back, just because he's interested, but he's also had some like limited interest the last time he had plecos. But granted, it was just super reds, although they were basically my super reds. They came from the same place that my super reds come from. And it just, they were around for a bit, but yeah, we'll see. It's a lot of us kind of just coming to agreements on what he wants to do and etc. Lady Diane, love the Equus, heard they don't breed well. Yeah, they're tough to breed. That's what I've heard. That they're pretty finicky, and just it's a struggle to get them to reliably breed and breed in any reasonable number. That's part of why they're so expensive. Alec the Nice. Oh, God. But I didn't inhale. Oh, Lord. Tetra Guy, Texas. How do you know if light is high or low without a par meter? My Java Fern and Anubias are purling. Not sure whether that means I should turn the light down. CO2 injected tank. Are you seeing algae buildup on the Java fern and the Anubias? If your answer is yes, that's when you look at turning the light down. If your answer is no, then your light's fine. It's a simple way to know. Your plants will tell you. That's my answer to you. Leo Contreras, let me grab your super chat real fast. Best worm to culture for L134 at any type of rainbow to handle temps over 82. So, quite a few of the... is it Goldie Eyes? I think there's some of the Australian rainbows that actually can handle hotter temperature. One that will definitely not do well in that is turquoise. But there are certain Papuan and Australian rainbows that do higher temperature well. They just don't go too much higher than that typically. Like, they'll have hot summers, but they spend more of their year in like the high 70s. But yeah, there's not a ton that are constantly at that kind of high temperature, but they can adapt to it. I've had plenty of rainbows live for years at a time, and I found out like my tank was way hotter than I thought for several months in a row, and it's like, oh, oops, and then brought temperature back down just because it accelerates their metabolism, so it gives them a shorter lifespan. Is the big thing there, Leo. As far as best worm to culture, I would generally say for any carnivorous pleco, if you know how to culture bloodworms, that's how. And I think you asked earlier about how to culture blackworms. I don't know. I'm not a live food culturing guru. There are people I know who are really good at that kind of stuff, but I'm more of a... I can do vinegar eels. I've failed at Daphnia a couple of times, and I can hatch baby brine shrimp. But I'm not really. I have not dived very deep into live foods, mostly because I just don't have the space or the demand from my fish right now to need that much. So, yeah, there's that. And Michael Milieri, 7-month member chat. What's up? Thanks, buddy. Does Bentley ever ship fish? Right now, no. I go to work before the post office opens, and I come home from work after the post office closes. So basically, I have to take an entire day off, and then I would have to have enough orders. And just in general, shipping's very taxing for me. The last time I shipped fish, I was in my fish room starting at 4 a.m., catching, packaging, bagging, all that kind of stuff. And I did not get to the post office until basically right before their cutoff. For same day, which is 3 p.m. my time. So I spent that much time in my fish room because I'm not a professional fish shipper, right? So I don't have an amazing process for doing this effectively. I'm certainly not somebody like Dan's Fish or Redfish, Bluefish, where they know what they're doing, they have a process, they've got it set up. I'm just a dude in a fish room. And while I like that, I much prefer partnering with someone, say like Jason, right? It's part of why I did that with the guppies. Because one, it allows me to help a business get more business. I don't necessarily sell. I'm not in the breeding for profit game, right? I keep fish because I love them, and I want more people to keep the same fish. Because if you like the same fish that I love, we're going to be good friends. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And I want more people to love the fish that I love. So I try to purposely, when I'm selling fish, make sure that they're affordable. And if doing that means that I sell them effectively to where I would never profit for them by working with a store, but they can more reliably get fish to people, then I would much rather do that and help out a small business at the same time. That's up my alley. Could I make more money shipping everything myself? Sure, probably. But it is so tough for me to get the time to do that correctly. And then the last time I did, like I said, I had so many fish that I had to catch and package and order and all this stuff and make sure I didn't screw up that it was just an absolutely exhausting day. This is why Bentley will never own a fish store, because catching fish and doing all that kind of stuff over time, not my jam. Raising fish and catching fish every once in a while, my jam. Oh man, chat, you got me so far behind. Oh, we're getting close. If you haven't, make sure you've put the hashtag in. Just saying. We got a happy accident that's gonna occur today. Got a Bob Ross. Let's see here. I'm gonna try to jump. If I miss your question, don't be afraid to repost it. Gary Duncan, do you know where to get nice large Ryukin goldfish other than Dandy Oranda? Nope. Is Aquahuna did goldfish for quite a while. That might be a place to look, but I'm not 100% certain that they still carry them because I have no clue what their inventory is like. But yeah, goldfish, you're talking to the wrong guy for goldfish. The goldfish for me, I'm like, yeah, those are those things you win at a fair, right? Those are those hassles you win at a fair at the dumb carnival games. And then you bring them home and it either dies immediately or it lives for an eternity and turns into like a monster that some person releases in a lake somewhere that they shouldn't, and it ruins the habitat and blah 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 blah, and gripe anger, old man angry. Oh man. Mega Champ, I'm a few aquarium co-op streams behind. Does anyone know the status of their new light? I think the biggest problem right now, I think they're in their final, if I remember right, the last time I got an update on it, which I think was on their forums, if I remember right. Maybe it was one of the streams. They were basically on the final revision, and the big thing is like getting everything set with shipping because it takes so long and all the delays and all that stuff because of pandemic. So I think they're close, but close is rough in current day. Just because of all those things. Alex Kubanoff, Parkinsoni are endemic to about 80-degree waters. There you go. There's an option too. Parkinsoni like that hot water. Their water naturally is quite a bit warmer. And you get a really unique fish. Parkinsoni are kind of unique in the rainbow world, which is what makes them so interesting. Bob Russell, if you were to do a Seattle sports team color-themed tank, what rainbows would go in it? What bottom dweller? Ooh. So I would have to go with... Actually, I can do this pretty simply. Seattle Mariners. I grew up a big Mariners fan. And if you've ever seen the Mariners Sunday jerseys, it's a white jersey with royal blue and gold. Okay? And the way that we do this is really, really simple. We have turquoise rainbows, that nice dark blue. To get our white, we're going to look at something like a panda cory or an Adolphoi cory, or one of those similarly where there's a lot of white and not a lot of other color to them type cories. We could also do something like a yo-yo loach, but I would prefer cories personally. Just kind of like cories a little bit more. I like their little like wiggle butt that they got going on. And to get that gold color, we have a couple options. We could either get another rainbow fish, and we could look at having the Herbert Axelrodi. It's a little bright yellow, not necessarily kind of a gold color, but still, it's close enough. We'll call it a day. Or we could do like a gold dust pleco, or a gold spot pleco, or a gold nugget pleco, right? Kind of plays in with that theme. Still more yellow color. We could even do a wobbin mooster, which a pleco I love dearly, and it's an ancestress, because they do get a beautiful yellow color. Not quite gold, but more of a bright honey-ish yellow. But still kind of fits with the jersey, because the gold is, as a small highlight, there is quite a bit of more yellow on that jersey in the grand scheme of things. I even have like one somewhere in my closet somewhere, but the Mariners have been so terrible that, and most of it, I bought that Mariners jersey, I'll say this, and immediately they started losing in a season where they were doing very, very well. So I put it in the closet and they went back to winning again. And I was like, well, I guess I don't get to win that jersey. Like typical sports paranoia, right? Superstitions and all that nonsense. Like I buy a jersey and they start losing. It had nothing to do with me buying it, but I'm going to tell myself it did. Oh, man. I like the question, though. Because the other thing you would do, right, is you could say, okay, I could build like a Seahawks-themed one. But the problem is, like, the green is the color you'd want to do. It's a highlight color, and it's like this lime green. And that's kind of hard to get in fish unless you do like the freaking glowfish, right? But yeah, yeah. Or I could go like real old school and do some other weird stuff, but that's where I'm at. That's where I stand. I'm do Mariners for their Sunday jersey. Tom H. Best beginner rainbows for super hard water. Well, honestly, quite a lot of rainbows actually do well in hard water. Usually it's the lake rainbows. So you're looking at things like Bozeman. You're looking at things like turquoise. You don't want to do any of the stream rainbows. They tend to have actually slightly lower mineral content in their water. So a lake rainbow, higher mineral content, harder water naturally. They tend to adjust that pretty well. In general, almost all rainbows adjust to hard water. And realistically, if you truly wanted to go super, super, super hard water, you go into full-on brackish. And you keep cyanodorsalis. But pygmy... So I saw watch a chat in two places. the newest chats just to keep the people who are trying to keep me in check and me trying to keep up with my chat for questions. But yeah, that's what I look at. There's lots of options. Bravehearts 1986. Hey Bentley, did you make your fantasy football playoffs? Oh, most certainly. I'm number 2 overall in the league. I summarily crushed my opponent in the first round of playoffs. Second round of playoffs is this week, and I look to summarily crush my opponent once again. To be fair, I need to get in a way more active league. I think next season I'm going to organize 1 or 2 like Fish Fam fantasy football leagues. I've got some friends, the guys over the Aquarium guys podcast. They're football nerds, and I know some of them want to do some fantasy football together, so we're probably going to do that. We'll probably build a league over there. I'll probably build a different one somewhere else. And maybe we'll do one like internal to people that watch the channel and I'm going to live streams and stuff like that for the football friendly fish nerds. We'll do that, but don't ask me to do fantasy baseball because I don't follow it well enough and I'd probably just get destroyed. Football, I know almost enough to do well. But yeah, no, I have a couple different. I have like the Cowboys defense and Amari Cooper and their tight end all like went phenomenal, so they just like hurled me way over the finish line against my opponent this week. Got lucky. Oh, Michael, those are koi behind him. We're talking about Goldfish. Then I have a diamond point painting about koi in the background. There's a story behind that, though. There's a story behind that. That's for another time. I promise you. It's coming in a video. I promise you. All right, Michael. Large established sword melted, only 20% left. Has been surviving for about 6 weeks now, but not growing back. Have tried root tabs with no luck. What now? So the first thing I would do is any of the stuff that's starting to melt, trim it off immediately. Because what you want to do is prevent the plant from wasting its energy trying to recoup nutrients from the stuff that's dying or keep the dying stuff surviving. The other thing you might look to doing is... This is going to sound kind of weird, but around the root ball, try to like move the gravel some. You know how like you would aerate your lawn? If you ever heard about this for like the people who are like really big lawn snobs, that guy who's always got the perfect lawn in your neighborhood. And once a year he like bores out the holes in it and all that kind of stuff. That's called aerating your lawn. Think about like getting your hands in there and kind of moving some of your substrate a little bit, just kind of almost like massaging it, if you will. And this is going to sound so psycho, I know. But what we're going to try and do is make sure that there's no compaction around the primary root ball for the sword. Also, if you can feel a little wider out, if your roots go like way out, it's possible that they're trying to pull nutrition from way away from where you've actually been putting those root tabs, and the center roots aren't actually doing a majority of the work anymore. And this can happen with really big swords, as they'll create such a large root system that they'll be mostly feeding from out here in the newest, healthiest roots, and the eldest roots in here are basically just there to hold the plant in place. They're not really pulling in a majority of the nutrition. So if we're putting all the nutrition there and they're trying to feed from out here, they're basically starving themselves. I know this sounds crazy. You might be like, come on, plants can't be that smart. But it's something plants do. It's weird. I don't even know the scientific way to explain why. That's how you know that I'm not a science person. I'm definitely not Mr. Science Man. I'm just like some random idiot who loves plants and has been relatively lucky with them. Oh, man. All right. Trying to catch up. Talking about aquatic arts, having a wide variety of knee arts. Aquatic arts get a wide variety of all sorts of stuff. But a bunch of my fellow fish tuber friends talk about aquatic arts all the time, so I don't dive into that well. I gotta let them have their thing too, right? I can't just like hop on the bandwagon all day long. I give all my love to Dan at Dan's Fish, and my buddy Jason. Although I'm giving away an Aquarium Co-op gift card tonight, so I guess I give it to them too, right? Yeah, what do you do? Paul Sotero's suggesting Corey Malini, and also the brilliant Rasbora for your lime green. Yeah, I just don't like keeping the super small Rasboras when I'm going to keep them with rainbows. I get all paranoid that the rainbows will bully them away from food. Okay, so Bandit Corey is like a common name for these guys. Oh, they do look cool. It's kind of like the skunk and almost like a penguin tetra in pattern. I do like that Corey. That's really cool looking. Oh, especially top down. Top down, it's got like a wishbone almost to it in the way that black striping is on the tail. That is pretty. Ooh, I do like it. I like it a lot. Mario, thank you for the 6-month member chat, man. I appreciate it. If you guys don't know, if you're members of channels, once a month you get a free super chat where you can ask a question. And it just like flexes your number of months and highlights it. It makes me read it. If you didn't know, you get that for each channel once a month for all the channels you're a member of, which is pretty cool. It's not just like, are you a member to all the channels? You get one a month. It's one per channel, which is pretty cool. It's a nice little feature YouTube does. Any tips on breeding loaches? Ask someone other than me. I have a large group of dwarf chain loaches, and I would love to breed them, just not sure where to start. So the biggest thing that I will say in breeding fish in general, I don't have a lot of experience with loaches. I keep them for fun, but I've never tried to breed them. Have lots of plentiful micro food. So an example would be like if you're doing lots of baby brine shrimp or like frozen cyclops, any of those super small foods like that, that triggers a natural instinct in most fish to know that there's lots of appropriately sized food available for the babies so that the babies can survive and they're more likely to breed if that's to occur. Now, beyond that, I really don't have any good tips. I know that I'm pretty confident it's possible to breed in captivity with dwarf chain loaches. A lot of the loaches, like, breeding them in captivity is really, really tough. So that would be something where I would seriously just start with a Google search and start hunting. And maybe you find, like, breeding dwarf chain loaches on YouTube and find somebody who's done it and watch their video, because hopefully they got a tutorial on how or what their conditions were, or etc. That would be my suggestions there. We're almost done for the night, trying to catch up. Amazon pancakes. Is it possible that having too many pothos plants in your aquarium can basically take your KH down to 0? So usually pothos won't do that. It's the process, the nitrogen cycle process consumes carbon hardness naturally. So converting ammonia to nitrite to nitrate will slowly over time consume your carbon hardness. And if you're not refreshing that carbon hardness, then yes, eventually your KH can go away to the point of where it will crash. And that causes all sorts of problems because KH is how we keep our pH stable. But, I mean, yes, pothos can feed on parts of the things that create our carbon hardness in our water. I just don't think that pothos is going to be specifically the cause of a KH crash. It could accelerate the process, though. It's very possible. Very possible. Alley Cat, what do you use to keep track of everything you have to do with your tanks? I use Aquarium Note 2 on Android. I use this very important tool. Terrible, I know. It's not very organized. But it's mostly in my head. I'm one of those people who I'm a creature of habit. So as long as I have certain things in habit, I just do them routinely. Now, that being said, most of it is a lot of my other things I do by eyeball. So I can look at tanks and tell when certain things need to be done. So, like, I can look at the flow coming out of my hang-on back and know, like, oh, it's about time I clean out the sponge on the intake because the flow's starting to slow down. And then if I clean that out and all of a sudden the flow really doesn't improve that much, it's like, oh, then it's the other sponge that's actually in the hang-on back itself. Right? There's little things like that I do just purely by eyeball when it comes to a lot of maintenance-type stuff. And most of that's just because my time schedule is a nightmare and trying to make time for the things I want to do, even when I plan it on a vacation, don't go so well. Oh, man. But yeah, a lot of it's just in my head. I need a better system. To be honest, I need a better system. I think something like the Aquarium Note 2 that you're talking about, I've got a friend who uses that and loves it. And that's a buddy of mine I talked to online who's over on the East Coast. But yeah, most of mine's just like, Bentley is creature of habit. Set up habit that is good. Bentley does it reliably every day. Or every other day. And that's just kind of how I get rolling on things. Or it's just one of those things where it's like, I specifically dose fertilizers in all of these tanks on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I specifically feed my fish 5 or 6 days a week, and I fast on day X and day Y, right? Things like that. I just build those kind of things. Yeah. Bob Purcell. Any tips on Anubias pinto? Keep it in highlight. Once you lose the white color, it will not come back most of the time. So if it doesn't stay in strong light, it will lose the white and then it'll stay green forever. It is possible to recover. It's just the likelihood of you recovering is very, very low. Once it goes fully green, it's going to stay fully green. Typically, it is possible to get the white to come back. I've done it before, but it's hard. And then basically, yeah, to keep that white color, it's strong light, and a little bit of CO2 goes a long way. Really goes a long way to helping that plant stay white. Tom H. Borrow someone's yo-yo loach. They love shrimp. There's no such thing as too many shrimp. Come on now. You can't be overloaded with shrimp, Lady Diane. Go to your local fish store. I'm sure they'll buy them like crazy. Or send them to various people. Everybody loves shrimp. I can't keep shrimp alive, so don't send them to me. That's a death sentence. Bob Purcell. Will aqua soil using the Brightwell Rio Cafe cause faster fouling of filters? I noticed my aqua soil tank filter plugs significantly faster than my Echo Complete. Interesting. I would say over time, I don't think it should, but potentially it's the finer granule size might prevent as much stuff from getting down into the substrate layer itself, so there's more of your mulm naturally staying up top, and that can be picked up by the filter. But I don't think specifically the substrate is causing stuff, unless you got something that like roots around constantly in your substrate for something, and then that's pushing more stuff up into the water column than it does in, say, the Echo Complete. And it could be a matter of what fish are stocked in that particular tank. That's interesting. That's really, really interesting. Listen, Bentley, I have Anubias white, which went totally green because I abused it, but then I dug it out of a corner, and the new growth is white. Yeah. So some of them, the more all whites are more likely, but the marble, the pinto, the stardust, all the ones that have the more mottled patterns where it's some white and some green and not necessarily like an all white leaf, some of those are way harder to keep the white color in or to return it if you lose it. I've especially noticed that when I was doing some stuff. I had a friend who gave me a chunk of Anubias marble that they had lost the white color in because it got like way overgrown and they were super busy. And I could not recover that, but I could recover Anubias pinto. And, like, the difference is so minimal in their appearance. But one recovered and one didn't. And I can't necessarily say it's because of the specific species. I think it's just those ones are harder to do than the full white Anubiases where the entire leaf is white. But, yeah, you can cause them to go green if you don't give them that nice, sweet light that they love. Mary Beth, what potassium supplement do you like? I love the one from Brightwell. So the Florin line potassium. That's the one I like. That's the one I use. I do have some powdered potassium. What is it? KN04 or whatever from Greenleaf Aquariums. I've used that too. They're both fine. You can even use the potassium supplement that comes from Seachem if you really need some extra potassium. But I like the Brightwell the most. That's my favorite one to use, and it's the one that I have regularly around my house. Bob, I may have a point. Cories and Bolivian rams in the aquasoil tank, endlers and coolies and echo complete. That would be part of it. Yeah, those cories are going to kick up a lot of stuff digging around, and so the rams kick up a little bit. The cories really do it. More than likely what they're doing is just extra mulm that's down in there. They're digging in there searching for extra food all the time. They're just a little bit extra mulm over time that causes more buildup. It's probably what you're seeing. Probably what you're seeing. All right, guys, it's time. Hope you got it in. If you didn't, it's too late now. Let's see here. I got to click some buttons and... Oh! This is somebody who's been around a while. Somebody who's been around a while. It's what I'm going to need. It's about to rhyme. From Joe Sneed. Joe, if you're still here, say something in chat. You are the happy accident of the day. If you're here, you got about a minute. Got about a minute. There he is. I know you're here, Joe. You've even shot me a message recently, but Joe, just in case, shoot me an email to bentley.pasco@gmail.com, just titled Happy Accident, and I'll get you set up with a 50 American peso gift card to the Aquarium Co-op. That assumes that you're in the U.S. If you're not in the U.S., then that's pretty useless to you, and I'll figure out something, and then I'll redraw it. So just remind me, I think you're in the U.S. if I remember correctly, but just remind me, Joe, and we'll be good to go. Look at that. I'm rhyming all sorts of terrible stuff. That's how you know I'm lazy. What do you do when you're not a poet and you're lazy? You rhyme everything and hope it sounds like poetry. Whew, all right. But yeah, I ordered one too many gift cards, so why not give it away? I'm not going to use it. I feel bad using it too, because yeah, it would be I get a little discount being a club member, right? And so the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society has a special discount with the co-op, and so it would be kind of unfair because I'd be double dipping my discount by using a gift card that I bought using a discount in the first place, right? Shh, don't tell Corey that they let me do that. But no, I would feel bad about it. But yeah, I'd rather give it away anyway. That's fun. It's for the new year. We had Christmas. We doing good. My brother messed himself up, but good news, he's not gonna die. So why not? Let us celebrate my brother's fortune. Which thankfully my little brother doesn't listen to me babble, but I know my mom does. So hi, Mom, I love you. All right, guys. Let's see here. I'm pretty sure I saw Dr. Black in chat earlier. Let me see if he's got one scheduled up, because we'll give you the link over there. You can go have a beverage with my Aussie buddy. He is up next. Yeah, there it is. Number 108. Man, he's on 108 live streams. That's like 2 years or something. I can math. There's a link to Dr. Blackstream. He's up in about 5 minutes. If you want to just keep the fish train rolling, go hang out with my buddy there. Thank you, everybody. Lots of member chats today. Thank you so much, everybody. New member, all that kind of stuff. Just great to see everybody. I hope you all have a fantastic New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. Be safe. Don't do any dumb stuff. We've gone through enough as is. Let's not go too wild. And then look forward to the video this Saturday. It'll be the first of some new stuff that I think you all will enjoy. I got a few more coming up that hopefully everybody's going to enjoy. We're going to start 2022 with a bang. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. And stay awesome. Goodbye, 2021. Good riddance. Let's move on and hopefully go back to normal. Take it easy, everybody. Have more Seekim.